Okay, I'm going in. Malia said it's okay. That's Malia again. Dalton's brutalizing people in the back of the room. Inappropriate, Dalton.
Are you bullying Esteban?
I gave us a good lesson on social Darwinism.
That's unacceptable.
I've gotten that.
What's the word state mean?
Nations.
Nations, countries. Go ahead. Compare processes by which state power shifted in various parts of the world. Go ahead. Okay. Imperialism in Africa. I don't even know how to tell you. You have got to know the white man's burden. You've got to know social Darwinism. You have to know scientific racism because it all justifies the actions of the British because they are simply saying they're following their nature, that it's not their fault, that they are a more powerful, more capable, more intelligent society. What did I just do? Purpose. That's nice. Are you guys okay? Now they're holding hands. Not Dalton, he's still bullying. Listen, to justify their actions. Did we write some of these down or not? That's a famous one. That's an easy one. All of you should say to justify their actions in almost every single DBQ you ever write. To justify their actions, to support the monarchy, to deny the allegations of, to prohibit people from having factories in their countries. Like that is literally, when you're talking about purpose, but then you have to put the because. To prohibit people from having factories because, what's the answer? Factories or industrialization in other countries will make them more powerful and more strong. You have to put the because. When you do purpose, what is the purpose? You have to say because. To justify their actions, because. Industrial Revolution in Western nations brought dramatic changes to Africa. Now we go into the heart of Africa, and not only do we rape, rob, and pillage their resources, but we actually make the African people do the raping, robbing, and pillaging of their resources. Before the 19th century, Europeans were confined to the periphery of the nation, of the continent of Africa. They lacked technology to explore the interior of the dark continent. Put it down. That's what Africa is referred to, is the dark continent, double entendre intended. Dark because of the dark race, but also dark because of what we talked about with the book Heart of Darkness, is that the further back you go down a river, it's as if you're going back in time to before. And of course, they probably all took their clothes off and swam, except then the crocodiles would have eaten them, or at least important parts of them. One technological capacity to go inland was possible. The abundance of gold, diamonds, and copper stimulated Western exploration and imperialism. People found a little bit of gold, just like in Latin America. Who remembers? Who remembers in Latin America what? What were they looking for? Does anyone remember? That's the EBD. They believed there was a place called El Dorado that was gold, 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 gold. And as soon as any sort of gold or silver was found, what's that mean about the white folks, the Europeans? Here we go. Let's go. Put trains, put trains, put trains. Again, trains would go straight in, straight in, straight in. And why didn't they connect inside? They didn't care about connecting inside. All they wanted to do was ship all of that stuff right back out. Go ahead. So journalists promoted exploration of Africa by writing about the continent's mysterious mysteries and the search for David Livingstone. What happened with David Livingstone? He was a missionary and he went into Africa and into the African continent and he was gone for decades. What did everybody think?
They ate him.
Uh-oh, he's dead. They would say the people ate him because they're trying to imply that people are savage and barbaric. They say some people say there was never anyone that ate other humans. It's only the Europeans and everybody that said they did, so that what? They could justify what? Going in there and sending in missionaries and the religion and everything else to these beasts and savages. All of the time. Every nation on earth that goes in to imperialize always says what? The other humans are barbaric, savages, bestial. always describe them that way. Are they really? Most likely no. Probably none of them were cannibals. They said that as a reason to justify what they were doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds.
Oh, South Africa was among the first parts of Africa to be settled by Europeans. Who took over South Africa 400 years ago? The Dutch. So they could go across to Spice Islands, Java, Indonesia. 1652, put it down if you don't know. The Dutch East India Company founded Cape Town as a supply station en route to Asia. These Dutch settlers were called Boers or Afrikaners. What's your mom speak? Afrikaans. With two A's, right? Yeah. Afrikaans. They say the language like this, but they put two A's in the middle. Afrikaans. A South African guy came and made my range. He cut my granite in my house once we moved here. Boers, Afrikaans, Afrikaners. They are the Dutch that settled in Cape Town. In 1806, the British took the Cape of Good Hope, abolished slavery, and drove the Boers further inland on the Great Trek. Who's driving out whom now? White people are driving out white people. Why are they kicking the Boers out, the Dutch? Because they're more powerful and because they can. What do they want? The natural resources, and they still want that route that the Boers took a long, long time ago to be able to get to Africa. I don't know, can somebody check about the Suez Canal? 1868, thanks, you got it? 1914, put it down as the Panama Canal. Panama Canal, can you touch where the Panama Canal goes? Oh my God, Adriana. Paula, where's the Panama Canal? Oh, Adriana. And what does it do for us, Paula? It what?
Trade.
Less about trade for us and more about, it's definitely trade, but also naval power. So we can get what? Our Navy, our ships from the East Coast to the West Coast without going all the way down around Cape Horn, thanks. All the way down around Cape Horn. So the British, it's called the Great Trek. The Boers are pushed on this Great Trek. Guess what happens when they get to where they're going in the Orange Free State? They found diamonds. So what did the British say? Oh, we like diamonds. We like diamonds. And they push people further and further and further away. Okay. 5 more minutes, because we can go till 5 after, right? Go ahead. The Kimberley Hole, guess what was in there? Wasn't a hole. It's a hole now because the British raped, robbed, and pillaged the diamonds. Ready? De Beers. De Beers, I think it's maybe even B-O-E-R. De Beers diamonds was Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes is the founder of De Beers Diamonds. Why is Cecil Rhodes a hugely important person in this course? There's a famous image of him. Oh, there it is. He wants to take over from Cape to Cairo, that the British take over all the land from Cape to Cairo, make a train that goes all the way from Cape to Cairo. Right? Cecil Rhodes. FYI, there's a thing called the Rhodes Scholarship. Cecil Rhodes actually was gay. He was actually gay. And it turns out, of course, he was racist. Guess what happened about the Rhodes Scholarship? Black people get the Rhodes Scholarship now. The Rhodes Scholarship in the United States of America. Does anybody know what it is? If you're the top of your class in high school, what are you called? The valedictorian, the salutatorian. If you're the top of your class in college, it's probably the same, I guess, valedictorian, salutatorian. The people that are the top of their class in college can earn a Rhodes Scholarship that lets them go to England and study at some of the most famous universities in England. What are the big ones in England? I can't remember it right now. Cambridge and the other one. There's one more. Oxford and Cambridge. To study at Oxford and Cambridge. That's what the Rhodes Scholarship is, and it's the people that are the very, 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 very smartest. But my favorite part, there was a football player from FSU that had a football game. He was a super big football star, but he also had an interview for the Rhodes Scholarship, and they wouldn't change the date, and it was on the date of a big football game. And so people flew him after his interview from Washington, D.C. back to FSU, and he got there by halftime to be able to finish the second half of the big game. I think it might have been against the University of Florida, but it was a black guy. Cecil Rhodes would have been rolling over in his grave to know that a person that is black had earned the Rhodes Scholarship. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. I love it. So, go back. Cecil Rhodes created De Beers diamonds, and he literally is responsible for the name of what country? They call it after him. Rhodesia, which is today, it's Zimbabwe, I think. Is that right? Am I saying it right? Zimbabwe? Go ahead. You have to know Cecil Rhodes, and you have to, like that famous image is famous. He wants a Cape to Cairo railroad. From 1899 to 1902, the British South African Company seized Boer lands in the South African War, aka the Boer War. And they said that they were massively, phenomenally amazing fighters. That the Boers were amazingly great fighters. Of course, they've been in Africa fighting for their existence for hundreds of years. Go ahead. The Boer War is the first place that the British used concentration camps. Wait, what? Can you please hear me? The British. Why do we have this word concentration camps? Why do you know it? Nazis. Nazis with the Jews and millions of other people. The British used concentration camps with the Boers and also all across Africa. Put people in concentration camps. Concentration, what it literally means is concentrating what? A group of humans, a population of humans in one place, and fencing them in so they can't do whatever they want to do. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was founded, and the British allowed European settlers to run the colony despite the majority native African population. You have to know that all of this imperialism in Africa, all of Africa is controlled by the British and the Europeans, the French, the German, the Dutch, except what percent of the population are they? The Dutch are a bigger percent because they've been there for 400 years. So generations and generations of families. Everywhere else, what? A very small percentage of white people, of European people, control what? A very large population of the native population. India is famous for this, and Africa is especially famous of this. Same with Indochina. What did we say the countries are of Indochina? Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And it's called Indochina because it's between India and China. Indo-China. Go ahead. Egypt was also among the first African kingdoms imperialized by Europeans. We know that part because of Muhammad Ali. Go ahead. And then we've already talked about this. The Tanzimat reforms. How'd that go? Not so well. Go ahead. He gets into massive debt. He tried to westernize. He tried to make it a Western power. Go ahead. But instead, he gets a massive, enormous debt, and so the British come in and do what? What's this called? Puppet them. They puppet them. Go ahead. So the Tanzimat reforms were terrible. 1659, the French established trade ports on the West African coast in Senegal. And what are they going to do?
Expand.
They're going to expand which way? East to west. Well, west to east. And then who are they going to encounter?
British.
The British, who are what? North to south. Do you hear me? The two major peoples are the British and the French. Yes, the Italians, yes, the Germans, yes, other places, but the two major people. Go ahead. By the early 19th century, the French eventually established settler colonies in West Africa. Go ahead. They also created the French Equatorial Africa and took over the island of Madagascar. Go ahead. Go ahead. Scramble for Africa. There you go. In 1879, Scramble for Africa began with British explorer Henry Stanley claiming the Congo River Valley for the Belgians. Henry Stanley, what's going to be the most famous thing they say? Dr. Livingstone, I presume? Who does he find? He finds Livingstone. How does he know? Oh, look, come here.
This is how you get them to answer.
Come here. He finds a white person in Africa. He finds a white person in Africa. Henry Stanley was one of the people that was sent out to try to find Dr. Livingstone. When he gets to a white guy, he's like, Dr. Livingstone, I presume? Because
the only
He's
white
in the
guy.
heart of Africa. He's deep, deep, deep into Africa, and there's a white guy like, I'm gonna go ahead and guess it's your Dr. Livingston. And the famous words are, Dr. Livingston, I presume?
There you
Oh,
go.
talk to the camera.
Oh,
This is Mrs. Croft.
that's right. Is this to put on your?
Yeah, one of my students is going, so she has to be
Oh,
recorded.
that's really
Say hi to
awesome.
Paige.
Yeah, hi, Paige. Okay, give these out tomorrow. There's instructions. You're gonna give them out tomorrow during bud plot.
For them to be able to sign on?
Yes, well, you're gonna sign them up, or they're gonna sign themselves up, but they need to go out tomorrow during bud plot.
Sweet.
Okay?
Thank you.
Bye, Paige. Bye, y'all.
Okay, now we have to go, right? Okay. What slide are we on?
49.
What?
49.
49. I want to go to 48. I want to go back to 48. Okay, so let's stop this one more time.